Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. So, yeah, we're this is going to be Motion Sickness's first live talk, and we're super excited for it. And we have Athharv who's going to be presenting today. Um, yeah, so just to give you a little bit of a gist on what motion sickness is, essentially, motion sickness is a little Discord community where which is only exclusively for like motion designers who are based or are Indian. So it's an Indian community, and essentially it was started sometime this year because me and a friend got talking. Yash, you might know him as Kausurama on his social handles. We got talking about how we just didn't have any motion designer friends apart from like the one or two that we knew. We were certain that there must be more people, but there's just no way to actually figure out, or we didn't have any avenues to find more motion designers. I think the only motion designer I knew at the time was Aishwarya, and so we kind of tried to get this Discord server going and then figure out a community from there. And yeah, so that's kind of how motion sickness started. And yeah, we're planning to do a bunch of talks and like we have a bunch of plans also, which are like in the going on in the back end and like a lot of stuff in the pipeline. So stay like within like check like have a look at our socials, join the Discord server if you want to. Yeah, I think that's about it, just to give you a little gist of it. And I think Aishwarya, over to you from now.
Okay, so yeah, a little bit about Athar. I know most of you don't need an introduction for him, but anyway, he is a freelance motion designer based out of Bombay, who's worked with big names like Swiggy, Bumble, Post Office Studios, and such. And if you want to have a look at his work, we have dropped a link in the chat box. And for today's talk, we're gonna try and keep it to 1 hour, and it's gonna cover his workflow of integrating 2D and 3D animation. We're gonna be accepting questions throughout the call. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box, and we'll go through them towards the end of the talk and answer as many as he can. So yeah, now Athar is going to start the presentation. Over to you, Athar.
Thank you, Aishwarya. So yeah, let's just get started with the presentation. Let me open my PowerPoint. Can you guys see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yep.
Okay, so welcome to this talk on integrating 2D with 3D. So hi, I'm Athharv. A little bit about me. So I'm basically a 2D motion designer. I work on characters and on shapes, text animations, and everything. So I wanted to dabble a bit into 3D as well. But 3D was like quite daunting for me at the very start. So I thought, there should be an easier way to start learning 3D. So what essentially I did was that I saw some work by Buck, Ordinary Folk, or fellows that they had done work of integrating 2D with 3D. So that caught my eye, and I thought, why not just start with basic, my basic 3D work, basic 3D modeling, and try integrating that modeling, export the PNG image from Cinema 4D and bring it into After Effects, and create a composition based on that. So that's how I started with, and then I leveled up to doing literal animations in Cinema 4D. So yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about today. So even this is something that I haven't uh, done on a client project yet, because I had a chat with a very senior creative director at Odd Fellows. So I was talking to him about where the motion design industry is headed. So even he said that these days, a lot of the work where 2D and 3D are combined together, that work has been coming up a lot. A lot of motion design studios across the world, and he says that it's a very it's a very gray area. It's very intricate to do. In client projects, you cannot do a lot of trial and error. It's from a business standpoint of view, it's not financially viable because it takes a lot of research for it. So yeah, and I think that's about it. So that's why even I have done only for my experimental work, not like for client. But I'm going to be showing you my work right now. Yeah. These are some of my experiments. This is essentially supposed to be from a course. I will be linking the names of those courses in the end of the session. So basically, this was supposed to be, when you do a course, there's always a homework, right? You're supposed to do a homework in one way, but you would ask that why would you show some coursework as an expert as in this presentation? So the reason for that is I had been given a coursework, but this is something that's totally different from what the course has to offer. I just gone in a separate direction and changed the entire, how in the entire look of the home course homework. So I thought, why not show it in this presentation? So the first one that I'm going to show you is probably the most complicated 2D 3D experiment that I did. It just took a lot of time, over a month, to like figure out how cinema, how do you export like PNG sequences from Cinema 4D, with I use Arnold renderer. So Arnold renderer is a bit difficult than Redshift or Octane. So yeah, that's why. And again, the second one is a pretty easy one. I will show you guys. So as you can see, there was perspective change. This was done in 3D. This is 2D. Then again, the hand is 2D. Everything else is 3D. Then this thing is also 3D. I mean, it could have been 2D, but I don't know why I did that in 3D. Yeah. So the next scene over here, this is like totally 3D. But again, the fire and the coffee and everything is in 2D. So that's what we're going to cover today. This cup and the lid is also 3D, and again this thing. So now let's just take a look at this very simple loop. Okay, so if you see over here, this shape is 2D. These shapes are 3D. Then again, this ring is 2D. Then this thing over here is a texture. This ellipse. 1, 2, 3. Again, these three things are 3D. This was at the time where I was just like learning cinema 4D, so the work isn't that polished. But yeah. And this is again 2D shape. And then this background over here is also 2D. Okay, so let's just go ahead. Now let's just start with basics. I had told earlier that I'll be covering the entire process from scratch, and the main effort of like the main work and the thought process is done in storyboarding and the ideation side of things, because you cannot, because mixing 2D and 3D is such a complicated process that you cannot just go into the production process and the post production process, and then you might think that I would have liked that if this thing was 3D, or I would have liked that if this thing was 2D. You'll just end up messing up the entire project. So it's better to have decided like what things are going to be 3D and what things are going to be 2D. So as I said over here, mixing 2D and 3D is not an easy task. The real amalgamation happens in the pre-production. So this is where you really have to ideate. Sometimes I know that there are once you go in the production part, a lot of new ideas start popping into your head. But it's better if you stick to what the storyboard is about. Because like we are venturing out into a very complicated area as such. And I know the most of the people who are watching this are 2D motion designers, and as far as I've talked to a lot of 2D motion designers, it is difficult venturing up into the world of 3D. So we just have to keep things simple, and we have to decide everything beforehand. So firstly, focus on developing the basic animation in 2D, since it's easier and more natural to 2D motion designers. So yeah, so basically when you create any of your projects, like you must be storyboarding, or you must be at least having a basic idea in your head how it's going to happen. So try ideating from a perspective of a 2D motion designer and not a 3D motion designer. Do not start thinking that this thing is going to be 3D, this thing is going to be 2D. First, create everything from a perspective of a 2D motion designer, and then if you want, you could, as I've written over here, that once you've done ideating and storyboarding the 2D side of things, you can um you can now think of replacing some elements, some 2D elements as 3D. You could have basic models or basic animations that you can export. You can do in Cinema 4D and export PNG sequences and then composite it in After Effects. So yeah, but again, like as I've said over here, that you have to keep the complex elements like characters in 2D. It's not something that you cannot do character animation in 3D, but as far as I've seen a lot of work, they have kept the character as 2D because like it gives more uh, cartoonish vibe that a lot of the motion design studios go for. So you could also do 3D animation of characters, but it's a really difficult thing. People literally have like specific jobs as 3D character animator, and I have seen videos where they do real life character animation. They take real life videos and then and trace it frame by frame. So it's a lot. A lot goes into it, and we don't want to do that right now. So now let's just do a small storyboard. I think let's just figure out what my ideation process is for mixing 2D and 3D. Right now, I'm not going to create something simple. I'll be creating something that's a bit from the perspective of how to keep it 3D as such. So I'll be doing that right now. I'll be focusing. I'll be having a few things as 2D, but mainly this is going to be from a perspective of 3D. So here's what I'm going to do. So basically, if I give you a brief of what we're going to do. So if Meta approaches me that they want to create an advertisement for the Meta Quest 2, how would I do that? They would like to have 2D and 3D mixed. It's like, as you guys know, that 2D, 3D is going to be everything for in the metaverse, like, from starting from models to interactions, and everything is just going to be 2D. But again, we're in such a stage that we're transitioning from 2D to 3D. So if Meta wants to make advertisement right now for VR, they would like to have something that people can relate to even right now, and then we could have like something, a vision of the future. So that's why they would like to have a mixture of 2D and 3D. So this is what I'm going to do. So for the first frame, I would like to have it as a blank frame, a blank white frame. Sorry guys, my drawing is really, it's not up to the mark. So yeah, if it does not look good, then I'm so sorry. Now what's going to happen is this capsule, which is going to be our headset. Oh shit. So sorry. this So yeah, this is going to be our VR headset. It's zooming out, okay, from the blank white range. This is going to be of white color, and again we could have the uh, opacity animation of this thing, and it's moving. So we can have like that, and let's zoom out, and yeah, so this zooms out over here, and it goes behind, showing an entire view of the Meta Quest 2. Now what we could do is we could have this rotating, and while it's rotating we can show that the head straps and everything are starting coming out. We also have it over here for you guys. And then it's gonna go behind, revealing the revealing the lenses that we have. boxes over here. And yeah, so now what we could do is that we could add some shapes over here to just really push the 2D to 2D and 3D thing. So random shapes are really good for that. So we could have right now it's like pretty very it's very rough. I mean definitely the style frame is going to be much more polished and much more evenly spaced out. But since this is a storyboard, I'm not going like very deep into it, and uh, being perfect with what I'm doing. You could have a random shape over here. Have a small dot over here. You have a small dot over here. I think it's again. Yeah. We can have a cube over here, I guess, and then we can have. So we can space this out evenly, but this is the gist of it. And then what will happen is that this again zooms into the camera. Zoomed into the camera, giving us the effect that we are wearing the headset. Because definitely VR is all about experiences. I myself have an Oculus Quest 2. So the first thing that I do is I take out the headset from the box that I've kept it in, and I put it in, or I don't know, wear it on my face. So that's what we need to show. Definitely, we've given an introduction of how the headset looks at the start. We can we added some playful elements like these things over here. Um, like these things over here, we've added some playful elements. We've given an introduction of. We also it marks the fact that we are also showing the branding of Meta over here. We're showing the headset. So we're also giving a look of the entire headset, and then we can have some playful elements over here. And now comes the main part where you can zoom. You can show that this is the effect of wearing the headset, and zoom. This is going to be black in color. Going to be black in color, so that's why it zooms in, and then yeah, we will have out, black out, and then we can have hands that are coming in. Sorry, guys, my hands are funny. Yeah, so we can have hands showing that giving us the effect that we're wearing the headset. These hands can be in 2D or 3D. I will be definitely now telling you what things can be in 2D and what things can be in 3D. Yeah, so these things can have a neon glow to it. Since if you wear the Oculus, there's a neon glowy things everywhere. Interactions and the UI of it. So we can just show that. Okay, so now we will think of how to execute this and what the design style should be of this thing. Since since we're going to mix 2D and 3D, as I said earlier, we would want to have a safe space between both the mediums of design. So what we could do is that we can have this. So basically, there are two types of 3D renders, if you know. They're the ones that are realistic, and they're the ones that are cartoonish, which have cartoon shaders. So what we can do is that this thing, the headset, I just putting the laser pointer. This thing, the headset, we can have this as a 3D object, but with a 2D look to it. The way to do this is using the Cinema 4D light that we have, and the Cinema 4D renderer that we have inside of After Effects, which allows you to extrude the objects, the shape objects. We can do that, and then we can place these things as regular shape layers on top of it. We can do that. This is one way, and then over here we can have this thing as a 2D element, this thing as a 2D element. This ring can be a wooden ring. This can be a glass object, and again, we could have some kind of a texturey, 3D texturey object over here. But these things we can keep it realistic rendering. I actually have done a project like this for myself, but that didn't turn out really well. I have to find for the style frames, but this is the one thing that I like came like was like really amazing that came into my mind. Yeah. So yeah, this thing can be in 2D. Then again, this zooms out and blacks out. Now these hands can be in 2D and 3D. So I think rather I prefer to have these hands in 3D. So if you want to mark it, this thing is going to be 3D object with 2D shape. So you give a 3D object with 2D shader. This is going to be 3D, 3D, and 3D. So again, like this is all trial and error. You can like so once you decided what objects is going to be 3D and what is going to be 2D, it's then you can like easily in the later stages you can have change the texture or the color of the object. So it does not really matter. But you need to decide everything in the first stages, in the first storyboard stages, and then we'll be having. And then again, this is again going to be 2D. 3D object with 2D shading, black out, and then we can have this hands as 3D with neon glow, which we can again composite in After Effects. So this is very not really polished. It's something that I've done really quickly right now in front of you guys. This was from a project that I was doing for myself. I mean, like it's a failed project, but since I remember the process, I thought to share it with you guys to how I interpret client briefs and how we can go about it. Like as I said earlier, if Meta is my client and if they want an animation for the Meta Quest 2, how would I go about it? And then if they have a requirement of mixing 2D and 3D as per their brand guidelines, what would I do? So this is something that I thought of. So yeah. So this is the process of it. I'll just keep it over here. And yeah, I guess I'm not doing the entire animation right now, but this is the basic gist. If you also like, if I would like to give you a simple example of basic shape animation, as I had this animation over here, for circle or square, where it's rotating and bouncing each other. So we can have these. So we can have this as this can be 3D, this can be 3D, this can be 2D. So this is how you like basically place out things how it's going to be. So that's the main purpose of doing this was to explain you guys like how to come up with ideas that mix 2D and 3D, and then how do you figure out what things are going to be 3D and what things are going to be 2D, so that you don't like spend a lot of time doing one particular thing. I'll be showing you some of my original works, and this is not basically combining 2D or 3D, but it's more or less in that region where if you find that 3D animation is difficult, you can take your 2D animation as a reference and then use those same keyframes, same easings, and the distance between those keyframes, and then you can create an entire animation based on that. And I'll be showing you that exactly. Yeah, this is the 2D animation base, as you can see here. And then based on this, I created this 3D animation. Okay, now if I want to combine 2D and 3D elements from both of these animations, like I have done this, we could do a lot of things. And basically, if you want to combine these two animations, what we can do is that we can have this particular circle in the center as a 2D element. We can have glow and the shading effect, and then place it on top of this animation over here, wherein we can Yeah, wherein we can keep these elements, or wherein we can keep these elements behind as 3D, while something like this is over here. We can then figure refine, where to keep it, whether to keep the glowing gradient, or we can have this basic orange circle over here. So that is something that we need to figure out later. It's not a big deal. If I want to play this, if you go ahead, then this thing comes out again. We can have this is going to remain as is going to remain as a 2D circle throughout the animation, but these things are going to be 3D as they are right now. As you can see over here, when the ball hits the boxes, what I've done for in the 2D animation is that I've added some speed lines, as you can see over here. I'll see if I can, yeah. So if you see over here, there are some speed lines that I have added. So we can also add that for the 3D animation as well over here. So this is like basically how you combine 2D and 3D elements. Like you can basically, if I tell you this one thing, that if you can't think of anything, while combining 2D and 3D, just use those basic elements that you see in your regular cartoons, where you've got bubbles, or you've got motion lines, or speed lines. Just like try, combining those with your 3D animations. So those with your like 3D, yeah. I'm also, I think, yeah. So that's about it. Again, like we can have this as 2D. So this is some. I mean, this is not basically meant to combine 2D or 3D animation, but this is how you can do it. So I'll just go to the next slide. Now let's talk about the technical side of things. Now you've figured out how the animation is going to be. Now you know everything. Now you know everything about the project and how you're supposed to go. Now, what workflow should I go for? For me and for a lot of people, the easiest workflow is creating your entire animation, like animating the entire thing in 2D first. If you can. If there are complex animations like the one that I showed you before, the character grabs a coffee and whether there's a perspective change of the table, you can't do that in 2D. But what you could do is just like create a rough idea in your mind, and do the 2D animation first, and then based on that, go to Cinema 4D, and then based on that animation, you can create your 3D animation. So that's what I've done for even this thing. Like I created the 2D animation first. I ideated, designed, and everything in 2D, and then based on that, I created this 3D animation. So basically, what I did was I exported this video from After Effects, got it into got into Cinema 4D, and then placed it in the background. And based on that, some things I traced frame by frame, and some things I calculate the distance between the keyframes, and then use the same easing in Cinema 4D to replicate the entire animation, but in 3D. So this is how you can do, and then if you want, you can like export single elements. Like if I want to export this cubes, right, just from After Effects, just from Cinema 4D, I can export this PNG sequence of these cubes and animated cubes, export it into After Effects, and then layer it on top of your 2D animation of your 2D shapes. So this is one workflow that I do: export PNG sequences from Cinema 4D and then composite it in AIM. This is what you could do. This usually is used where you've got realistic renders, like basically when you're rendering something from Octane, Redshift, or Armor. Or else the other way is that make use of the inbuilt Cinema 4D renderer. Like for this thing that we've done over here, um, we will have to use the inbuilt cinema renderer to create this 3D animation, because we thought of sticking to the 2D look. That's why the Cinema 4D renderer in After Effects, it just generally maintains the 2D look that we're going for, the vector look. But again, like these elements over here, we'll have to render it from, if we do realistic render, which we can do from Cinema 4D. downsides of using this inbuilt cinema renderer is that it just takes a lot of your GPU and CPU both. So yeah, sometimes the project might get laggy, very laggy. That's one downside of using the inbuilt cinema 4D render. The other way of doing it is you can use Cineware and Cinema 4D Lite. Now, I know a guy. I mean, I don't know him personally, but there's a YouTuber called ECA Brands. That guy had created a tutorial on using Cinema 4D Lite and Cineware to combine 2D and 3D. But that's a bit tricky to understand at first. So, and I personally haven't tried it. I would love to try it. I will definitely try it one day, but I haven't personally tried it. So I don't know how this thing exactly works. But what it is that you can have your 2D animations and 3D animations, and if you want any change, you can make the change live from Cineware. That is the cool part. Again, I don't know. I think it might eat up a lot of the GPU. The other way is the options are limited. I mean, there's not a lot you can do. I mean, you cannot do compositing in Cinema 4D. Even the 3D artists that are there, they also sometimes export the stuff from Cinema 4D, bring it into After Effects, and then do the compositing. But again, if you want to try, I mean, I'm not stopping you. So you can have basic elements like bubbles or motion lines or speed lines. You can animate those in After Effects and export the PNG sequences into Cinema 4D, and then import those PNG sequences as materials in the luminance channel of the. I'll show you guys what that is in the luminance channel, and then turn on the alpha so that the background is removed, and then you can place it over there. This is something I tried. It's not that great. Yeah, now we'll go behind the scenes and look at the projects, how that is, because I might talk something, it's difficult for you to like imagine how that is. So it's better to show what it is actually. So I'll be sharing. I'll first share my After Effects, and then I'll share Cinema 4D. Can you see the After Effects screen? Hello, can you see the screen? Can
Yeah, you
somebody?
can go ahead,
Yes,
Athar.
yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So this is the final composition over here with the sound designer and everything that I've done over here in After Effects. And let's break down this project. So this is the first part where I have composited the character first. This is the introduction of the character. There's a perspective change. Now this is something that's kind of difficult when you're mixing 2D and 3D. You generally need to have a similar perspective so as to make things easy for you. But I took up this challenge to figure out how do I add some kind of a complex camera movement, yet try to combine the 2D animation. So this is what I had done. Now, what the difficult part over here was to see how would I, match the movement of the character over here. As you can see, this is position. So this character is coming from the left. So it took time to figure out how how would the motion match, how would it look natural. So that was it. So it took some time and multiple renders from Cinema 4D to figure out how I would do that. Now I will share you guys I will share the screen for Cinema 4D to show you how the project is. So this is Arnold over here, Arnold renderer, and this is the Cinema 4D. Now what I would like to tell you is that please always have your camera set to somewhere around the focal length should be somewhere around 135 to 300. This creates the isometric effect that you need to have because 2D, mostly 2D we stick to this one particular perspective, and there's not a lot of like until and unless you do those 1.3 point perspective. So, your illustrations are based on that. Then you might have to you use your different focal length, something like wide angle or portrait or normal lens. So that's why but my animation had just like basic characters and no kinds of weird perspectives. So that's why I thought to go with a very isometric style of perspective for the focal length of the camera. And yeah, I currently this project has been altered multiple times, so I don't have the original animation of the camera. What it was basically is something like this. So this takes time to load something like this, and then the character enters over here. So yeah, this is just basic. The lighting over here, I've kept it basic. I've just used a regular sky light that is there of Arnold. There's also in Redshift and Octane Sky and Redshift. I don't know what it's for Redshift, but more or less is the same thing. And then I have used materials which do not have a lot of reflection in it, because then again it would not look very cartoonish, which that was a look that I was going for. So
Athharv, I think we just lost the screen share. Could you just do that once more?
Yeah. The materials over here,
Yeah,
I've
okay.
tried to keep it as I've tried to keep it very very simple. I don't want to have a lot of reflection, because the more reflection and shadows you have, the more realistic your renders become. That's why I thought to keep it something that is 2D. So this is what what I did. Then let's next move on to the next part 2 over here. I'll go in After Effects and show you this particular animation, this particular scene that took a lot of trial and error. This is the part 2. Now this is the part where you grab the coffee mug. Now what I had to do over here was to figure out how would I place the hand behind the mug while having a 3D textured table over here. This took some time. So what I did is that I rendered a normal basic 2D animation over here. Oh, sorry, basic 3D animation over here from Cinema 4D. This is the original animation. It's just one single frame that I whole frame. No, actually, it's the entire animation. So yeah, so I imported that and I exported that entire thing and then masked it out so that the background is gone. Now you might see that it has also cut the coffee lid. So I exported a single version, this single version of the coffee as well over here, as you can see. It's also animated. So this you might see, this is a very like for you might see, yeah, this is a very simple thing. But again, so while doing this thing, while executing the animation, it was like a lot of trial and error that went behind it. That's why a lot of people refrain from doing all these kinds of experiments for client projects. I mean, like if it's something like Buck or Ordinary Folk, definitely they have got way more talented artists. So and way more technically skilled artists. So it's not. I mean, it's still difficult, but not that difficult for them to execute something like this. And then again, this hand is a path animation over here, basic path animation that grabs the mark. For this, I had to then cut and then place it on top of the coffee mug. As you can see, it's a hard cut over here. And then he creates a effect that he's holding the mug. Then again, this part is really basic. All 2D animation over here. This is 3D. I mean, I could have done this in 2D, but I don't know why I did that in 3D. Ha. So this is my favorite scene out of the entire animation because, like, I really enjoyed working on this. This was my first 3D character animation, as you can see, and I combined a lot of 2D elements, basic 2D elements over here. So this character, he falls. All the coffee falls on him, and he gets really angry because of that. And then we have this coffee element, coffee stains over here in 2D. And then we've got this fire in 2D again, which I did over here, and I added a deep glow, I guess, on top of it. Yeah, I added deep glow and created that effect. So this is how basically you find the most basic opportunities to combine 2D and 3D. You do not need to go all overboard, but you can just find like basic existing. Even if you're a 3D motion designer, you can like do your work from a perspective of 3D, but then you should try to find the most basic elements that you can convert in 3D. Now I could have had this coffee in definitely I couldn't have the file in 3D, but I could have this coffee elements in 3D. But I thought, why not have the basic elements as 2D to exaggerate the effect of 2D and 3D combination. And the next part is pretty simple, just basic 2D elements. This coffee mug is again just a 3D PNG I have, and then again these there's this thing is in 2D coffee stains. Now I'll be showing you guys another project. This one's pretty basic, but again, I thought I might show you guys. Oh, so I forgot to show you the character for the previous animation. Wait. This is how the character is. I have animated it in Cinema 4D, the entire thing. Using pose morph. This thing is really amazing. This pose morph, very handy. And yeah, this is how the composition looks. Basic lighting, not really something that's great. It's basic lighting because again in 2D you do not need to have the very realistic lighting. Basic lighting also works. Now I'll show you the very simple 2D animation that I have. This is something you can also try. So originally this is how the animation is in 2D. So all the elements over here are in 2D. So this is all done in 2D. Oh shit. Okay. Switch on the layers. Yeah, you can have these elements over here in 2D. This is all done in 2D. Okay, so this is like I had like switched off a lot of the layers and deleted a few of them while animating. So I had okay. This is how it was going to be. So now, based on this, what I did was that I exported the entire PNG sequence, the 2D PNG sequence of animation that you see over here, into After Effects, into Cinema 4D, and then in Cinema 4D, I traced it frame by frame for more than 170 frames. I traced it frame by frame to create that kind of animation. This was at this stage where I was in my 3D journey, but I didn't know how to do a lot of like keyframe animations or spacing and everything in Cinema 4D. I was like very new in Cinema 4D. So if even you are new at Cinema 4D, what you could do is just basically do a lot of hard. I mean, I wouldn't say like hard. Hard. I mean, it's hard work, but not smart work. Is that you could like go frame by frame and just copy the entire 2D animation in Cinema 4D. Let's switch off these layers. Now, what I did over here was I went to cinema. I'll just show you the Cinema 4D file. Yeah. So here's the Cinema 4D file. So again, like why have I chosen the pink and yellow? Because it resonates with my logo, and I thought those things like look something that's natural to my style of design. So as you can see, it's all traced frame by frame. I'll just show you guys. Yeah, look at this. This is all traced frame by frame. And then I had actually placed the. Let's see if I can show it to you. I don't know if this is working. This thing over here is a video file, a material-based video file. I don't know why isn't it showing right now. Yeah, I mean, while I did this in Cinema 4D, I think R24 or 25, I don't know. But over there, this was an entire video file. I think yeah. So yeah, this was a video file where there was the PNG sequence of the 2D animation that you saw right now in After Effects. So I just went ahead, traced it frame by frame, eliminated a few elements like there was this one thing. There was this thing over here, like the capsule, like the tube over here, which I eliminated it with. I thought I could keep it 2D, and I eliminated it out of the composition and retain these two shapes over here as 3D. So again, these elements over here are 3D. I thought to keep it 3D. I don't know why is it showing red. I don't know. It's a really old project file. And then there was basically simple animation over here. And yeah, so this thing went over here. So this was basically the 2D, the 3D animation side of things. Now I'll show you how the entire project looks once you uh, composite everything in After Effects. I'll just have to shut Cinema 4D. It's taking a lot of time. Yeah. So now I'm sharing this stuff, and this is the final thing this is the final thing how it looks once you composite both of them. This is the 3D PNG sequence. And then this is the 2D the 2D sequence. Now once you place both of them on top of each other, This is how it looks. And again, as you can see, these lines over here are all 2D, and the background is also 2D, while this particular ball is in 3D. I'll just show you how I did the background, something that I figured out. So, yeah, so this is like one single line that I have over here, and then I've used the repeater to try. This is all trial and error to figure out how it looks, how much offset should I have, and then use scale to like sort of affect the position of the lines, and then the rotation. So the possibility are endless what you can do. Repeater animation is something that is like really amazing, and I really love to see work that people do with repeaters. Repeaters. I mean, I've seen so many complex line animation that people have done with repeaters. So yeah, this is like I got an opportunity to experiment that. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean now I like to be honest over here that mixing 2D and 3D is something that cannot be covered in a session of 1 hour. It really takes a lot of trial and error, watching a lot of tutorials. If you want, you can also do courses, and on top of that, I would definitely want you to try, and just like I don't want to go, I don't want you to go all out and do something that's like that takes a lot of time, or it takes a lot of your it takes a lot of effort or your energy mixing 2D and 3D. So when you're doing a basic work, like just like so if you're doing something for Instagram or a passion project, just see if you can figure out what elements can be in 3D and what elements can be in 2D. Like the basic, the small ones. I don't want you to go all out. You can just have that particular element, model it in Cinema 4D, and then export that one PNG sequence of that and just place it in the background and see how it looks. Just start with that, and then you can like go on to animating that stuff. So it's like like a really small stuff. This is for those who do not know how to use Cinema 4D. Cinema 4D, but again, those who know how to use Cinema 4D, I mean, definitely you'll have it a lot easier. So again, if I want to cover everything in a gist, is that first of all, draw out a storyboard focusing on 2D animation. 2D animation, since even I've seen a lot of people who do 3D animations. They also even do the first storyboarding in after on pencil and paper. So it's basically all about that. So do your animation, do the storyboarding. Then if you want, you can replace some or all background elements with 3D models of the same. Uh, and then yeah, make sure that the camera movement and perspective in Cinema 4D is the same as of A. So when you're compositing, it should not look that your camera has a focal length of 35 mm, and but your animation and but your 2D elements are all isometric. So you don't want that. Just like make sure just do trial and error, just to try it how it looks. So there's no particular formula or a particular tutorial to do this. It's all up to you. It's all very subjective. So that's that. Then the render can be realistic or toon stylized. So basically, I like to combine realistic and um, realistic renders and like your very basic 2D animation. Or else you can have the entire thing as toon stylized, have it as the 2D look to it by using the Cinema 4D. By using the Cinema 4D renderer that you have in After Effects. It just extrudes the shapes that you have. But again, downside to that is you cannot add a lot of Effects onto it. I think you not even. I don't think you can add any like proper effects onto it. Or else you can use Arnold. Arnold has a toon shader, which creates a very stylized effect. But again, the stylized effect, something like that you see on those Netflix series. I forgot the name. I think Arcane. I don't know. I don't remember the name of it. It was there something like cool stylized. Everything is in 3D, but it has you know everything is in 3D, but it has got 2D effect on it. So that is done using uh, Redshift. Redshift. There's also option in Redshift to create this toon stylization, or even Arnold has a proper separate shader that has been assigned to for this toon stylization. But this is like something that's very complicated, but we're sticking to the simple things. And render out the PNG sequence or the file that you have animated or modeled in Cinema 4D. Bring it into a, try to match it with the composition, like how I matched the, entry of the character from left to right with the perspective change of the table. So you can do that. And then, what happens is that sometimes when you light in Cinema 4D and when you import that entire thing into After Effects, sometimes the lighting of the composition and your 3D animation that you've exported from Cinema 4D do not match. So just to match it at a very minimal level, you can use levels or curves to do that, and that's pretty much about it. I mean, I shouldn't say it's pretty much because there's a lot of complicated things to do. But yeah, keep this one point in your mind that don't unnecessarily make things complicated for you. Keep it simple, like I said before. Mixing 2D and 3D is a difficult task even for the best of the studios. Like I said in the starting of the very presentation, that I had got the opportunity to talk to a very senior creative director at Oddfellows. They have this thing for budding motion designers that you can go have a one-on-one talk with the people over there. So I talked to him. I told him like, is Oddfellows combining 2D or 3D? So they said that that's a really intricate space that they haven't figured out right now. They're just sticking to either 2D or total 3D. There might be one or two projects, but he said that in the future they are focusing on doing that. And he also says that in the industry is also going in that direction. Start small, start doing experiments. I won't say create an entire new project for mixing 2D and 3D. In your existing projects or your previous projects, find out things that you can replace with 3D, and then just try combining both of them. And that's it. Like, give it a try, you know. And yeah, all the best. Is like, there's not like much that I can like tell you and go in detail in just 1 hour. But I would definitely like to I will share some links with you guys, which you can research it on your own and figure out a style for yourself, or or figure out a way to do it. You can come up with very new ways. The possibilities are endless. And thank you for tuning in. I think that's about it. You know, thank you, Motion Sickness, for giving me the platform to present this. Also, I think we will open the floor for questions now. Also, any criticisms or any feedback is welcomed. This is my first ever workshop. I might have fumbled a lot of times. I am not that good at public speaking, but I tried my best to keep things simple and explain it in a very simple way. So yeah, that's about it. We can open the floor for questions.
Thanks, Athar. It was really interesting to see all the behind the scenes of the project and your thought process for the whole thing. So yeah, like you said, if anybody has any questions, you can ask him now.
Any questions are welcome. I mean, if it's like related to 2D or 3D or anything else, I'll like you can just ask me, and don't like shy away because I can answer them.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I mean, even more than questions, I would like really love if you guys would like tell me how the session was, or how any criticisms or any feedback that you can give us that we can try to improve in the future, not just for myself, but even for motion sickness, like what about like adjusting the timings of the session or something like that. Anything is totally accepted. Alright. And even the basic questions are welcome. Like,
Um, hey, so I had a question.
yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, when you work between 2D and 3D, you're essentially
Hmm.
working on separate softwares. But say, like,
Yeah.
your goal is to make a match cut
Hmm.
between both, like, your 2D and your 3D output. And
Hmm.
let's say that you have the same object. I don't know, for the lack of a better object, let's just say it's a cube right now. And
Ha.
that cube has, like, you've made it in 2D and you have a certain kind of movement and motion that you've created there. So now to achieve the same movement, motion, camera angle, like how do you exactly approach that? And even like in terms of composition, like it has to be at a certain spot for it to
Yeah.
match cut
So
perfectly.
like I said before, you do the entire animation in 2D that you have in your mind, because like that will give you a really good starting point to create a 3D animation. Then export the PNG sequence, like you can like how you export from a media encoder as a MP4 file or an MOV file. There's an option to export as a PNG sequence as well. Export that thing, then import the PNG sequence. Essentially, what you're doing is exporting the video from After Effects that you're doing the 2D animation, export it into export it, and then import it into Cinema 4D. You're importing the video in Cinema 4D, keep it in the background, and then what you can do, this is the hard work, not the smart work. You can trace it frame by frame, so that both the motion of both the animations, like the 2D and the 3D, are similar essentially. So
Gotcha,
if
cool.
you want, I will show you a live example of what I'm talking about in After Effects. So I'll show you a live example of how how you can do a match cut. So like I said, the gradient one, which I had done, that also shown in the video. Okay.
Hey Athharv, I have a follow-up question to what Nikhil just
Hey, hi
asked.
Rishabh, how are you? Yeah, you can
I'm
ask.
good,
Yeah,
man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Long time no
Like,
see.
yeah, I was like in the in the till 6:30. I was in the session. Then my
Yeah,
internet
yeah.
went off, and
Okay.
then
No worries. Yeah,
coming back up. But
yeah,
yeah, I had one question.
yeah.
So, like as Nikhil also just mentioned that we have multiple gradient and stuff, like multiple things, like
Hmm.
one After Effects and one like let's say a Blender or Cinema 4D, right? There are
Yeah.
two different things going on
Hmm.
together. So at that time, how can we get much more handling complexity with that? Like what exactly?
Um,
We have
could you like
something
frame it
after.
like something like a bit easy for me to understand? Like, I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
get the
yeah.
question as such. Yeah.
Yes. So let's say we have created something in After Effects, and
Hmm.
then we want some 3D objects from like Cinema 4D or let's say
Yeah.
Blender. Right.
Yeah.
So if we consider Cinema 4D for once, so we can import the same file into After Effects and then have a bit of camera motion with us. Right. And at the same time, we can like get a live link, like as if we change something in
Cinevere.
Cinema
Yeah.
4D.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that reflects directly to After Effects. But what if we are working on some Blender thing? And as you
Hmm.
said, we export the PNG sequence, and then if in case we need to adjust some motion or something like a placement only
Yeah.
within the same graph, so wouldn't that be like too much like to and fro motion that we have to do between softwares?
Yeah, so that is something that you need. If you like even looked at my presentation, I switched so many times between After Effects and Cinema 4D just to show you guys. Now imagine how would it be while executing the things. So there will definitely be a lot of back and forth. I think Amin had shared on F9 that now After Effects is going to come up with Amin, or I think I guess Vishal had shared that After Effects is now going to come with native 3D. So
Right.
hopefully that would solve the problem to do back and forth. But yeah, I mean, if you want something that's very realistic rendered, right, like for something from Octane, Redshift, or Arnold, you
Hmm.
definitely need to do a lot of back and forth. So as I said that it's good to have a 2D animation with you that will serve as a foundation to build on the entire project. Now coming to Nikhil's question, I will get back to you, Rishabh.
Yeah,
Now coming to
definitely.
Nikhil's question, to do again, this is like a you can also you know understand your question from this particular animation. Now, since I had a 2D animation base ready over here, it was easy for me to build on the same kind of animation in 3D, matching the motion. Now, you were saying about a match cut, right? So take a look at this, Nikhil. Since I had this basic animation ready over here, it was easy for me to match this thing over here without a lot of trial and error. So both of them have the same kind of easings. That's why it looked as a match cut. Yeah. See again over here if I want to do a match cut. See, you can do multiple back and forth between 2D and 3D. So that's not going to be an issue when you have a 2D foundation ready with you, so that it becomes easier for you to build your 3D animation on top of it. This is what I'm talking about. Does that like solve your question? Like, is this solve your query, Nikhil?
Yeah, thanks for that. I had a little follow-up to that also. So,
Yeah,
so again, if you have the same object and the same motion, do you also have
yeah.
to but you say, for example, have a very subtle kind of graph. Let's say you made it in After Effects first.
Huh.
Are you able to accurately like transfer the values onto if you do the same kind of motion on Cinema 4D?
You cannot like I mean basically the graph the Bezier curves and the graph is different in Cinema 4D than After Effects. I mean more or less. I mean definitely the principles are the same. Like when you stretch it, you get a really steep motion, steep curve. It's the same thing, but the visuals of the graph, the UI is different than After Effects. So you just need to do a bit of experimenting in the Cinema 4D to understand how the graph works. But you cannot so basically my value over here I always use a 60 to get that smooth motion. Like this is pulled the Bezier curve is like like this. It is pulled over here, 60 from over here and 60 from over here. So just to get that thing right, it's a bit difficult in uh, Cinema 4D because we've got plugins like Motion V2 from Motion Design School, where you can easily just type in the values and the easings will be done for you. But for some, there's no. I don't know if there is something like that on After Effects for Cinema 4D as well. But yeah, you can have something like it cannot be always like 60. If you if you have the easings as 60, it might as well be 65 or 70 in Cinema 4D. You cannot like have a really exact value for that, but more or less, you might not have an issue while uh, while making a match cut. Like over here, yeah, like over here, um, the easings are more or less the same. This is definitely 60s because I have used the wait. So I have used the motion tools for that, and this thing pulls the Bezier curve from both the sides to 60. And that's what I've done over here. So if I would show you what this is, this is 60 over here. And if you want this kind of curve, okay, you have to do a lot of trial and error. So basically, what I thought worked for me the best was I had kept 2020. So I have like 10 frames over here, 10 frames over here, and then this is 20 frame, and the 10th frame is where the major where the value is at the highest. So what I did was in Cinema 4D, I tried to pull the both the graphs together over here to the center so that to more or less create the same kind of easings. But you cannot have a really accurate easings until and unless you trace it frame by frame, like I had done for my very first project. Do you have any more
Understood.
follow-up questions?
Yeah, no, understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Guys,
And
anyone
Rishabh,
else?
yeah.
Sorry.
Rishabh had yeah. So Rishabh, so that's why I told you, like, if you don't want to do a lot of back and forth, make sure that your animation is totally ready in After Effects. Like, it's good to go. Like, even if you post it on Instagram as just a 2D animation, it should be as good as that. And then if you want to avoid the back and forth, bring the entire animation into Blender or Cinema 4D, animate it over there. Use the materials, do the lighting, and yeah, and then you can export that entire animation from Blender into again as a PNG sequence, and then import it into After Effects, and then you can again do the compositions. So that's how you could avoid, like, you can just like do the animation in After Effects, then do it in Cinema 4D or Blender, and then come back to After Effects. So you just have to do three times of um, back and three times you have to do a bit of back and forth. So that's what you can do. That's what I have done. That's why if it's better if you would do the planning pre-production, that this thing is going to be as 2D and this thing is going to be 3D, so you don't have to do the extra work of animating that particular 2D element in 3D. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that makes sense. That helps a lot to me. Thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Matt.
yeah. Thank you for asking. Does anybody else have questions?
Everyone, we're running a little short on time, so we'll take one last question
Yeah,
if someone's got it.
yeah.
Please go ahead. Feel free to start your mic.
Hi, hello.
Hi Yash. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, bro. I want to ask, like, who was your inspiration? Like, who do you look up to in your work? Like, because
For
I saw your
mixing
work and
2D,
it's pretty vibrant.
yeah.
So, yeah, like, who do you look up to, basically?
So for me, I feel like more than the animation, it's it's better if you would like focus on the design side of things, because I feel animation is something that first of all you need to develop an eye to figure out what looks good and what does not look good. I genuinely love to have a very smooth animations. And the part of the design side of things, I just what I do is that whenever I sit on my table and I want to think that I want to create something today, I spend the next 2 days on Instagram, Dribble, and Behance, taking a look at n number of works. I make myself feel total insecure, get a lot of what you call that, imposter syndrome, and just try to look at other people's work. But there's this thing called steal like an artist. So just look at other people's work. Get multiple. Create a mind map or a story or a mood board where you get different design styles. Put it in a mood board, and then just try to combine different elements from the mood board into one single frame, and then just think that if this is the design style you want to go for or not. If there's something gradient, then you can look at a lot of people's work. Buck has a lot of good gradient work. Then even ordinary focus has got a lot of good gradient work. Just take a look at that. Just try to grab a frame. Try matching the exact gradients. That's what I had. How I had figured out how to match gradients. So, and about design style, if you see, I don't have a particularly fixed design style. I'm leaning more towards the gradient style right now because like that worked really well on social media. But if not for social media, I'm just trying out multiple different styles. Because if you have, uh, if you have a portfolio of multiple different styles, it shows that you're a really diverse animator. So that's about it. Like I would like definitely tell you guys to focus more on the design side of things. You know, take up courses that teach you how to, ideate, how to come up with new ideas. I feel that part is more important than animation. And this is just for like that totally for After Effects. After Effects animation. I mean, when it comes to cell animation, it's a totally different thing. I mean, cell animations are like a big salute to them.
Like it's
Like it's
very time consuming and need to have a
Yeah, it's
lot
a
of
time
patience for that.
consuming. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you should maintain the lines and everything. So, I really look up to Sara animators. I was working with a really well little. I was doing a project with Post Office right now. So even yeah, again that project we were combining 2D, 3D, and cell together. So I had to do so much of back and forth with the 3D animator. So the 3D animator is a really seasoned guy. He's like I think his name is Setu C on Instagram, the Boring Bot Lab. He's a really seasoned 3D animator. So we have to do a lot of back and forth because we came across a problem. So more or less, there's a lot of problem solving in combining 2D and 3D as well. And then
Exactly.
I had to also compose a 2D cell animations from a guy called Nicholas Marsa. So he's also really a very seasoned animator. So that's how you do, and basically it's more or less problem solving.
Okay, that's great. Also, like one more thing, like now you said post office production. So, are there like studios like that based in India, based in Mumbai, who work similar to post office production? Because I really follow their work and I just love them. So, like, are there any other studios who work on the same style in Mumbai?
You can check out Studio Mobius by Nikunj Patel, uh,
Okay,
friend of mine. I mean, he's a really senior. I haven't met him. So you can check out Studio Mobius. Then there's obviously Studio Zeng, where Nikhil also has done a lot of work. I also really love their work. I mean, basically they have this. If you see his profile, he had done a breakdown on this Adobe Design Mix. That was like that was when I saw that work on LinkedIn. I was like blown away. That's when I connected with Nikhil on LinkedIn. So the studio. Then again, you could check out Animal Co. They do a lot of motion branding as well. And there's mm, I don't have a lot of names on my mind right now, but like if you ask me in terms of really abstract or very cartoony work, a lot of there's still a lot to grow in the Indian space, I think.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I believe that this question would be best answered by two people who have been in the game for a very long time, Amin and Vishal. Because it's just been like 2.5 years of me being in the freelance game. But these guys are like 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I don't know. So
Yeah.
they will be knowing much more mining more studios than I do because they have like if you've got a lot of good work and then you're working for international studios, definitely they have much more better experience and knowledge about that about how the freelancing thing is in India.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Thanks for asking.
Okay, so we're really running short of time.
Okay.
So thank you all for showing up, and thanks to Athar for this great
Uh,
presentation.
I thank you.